There we go. Got it. Welcome and good afternoon. Greetings to everyone here. My name is Atia Thurman, and you have joined the breakout session for education, training, and technology, building a talent pipeline for STEM careers. Just to get to know each other a little better, I had us introduce ourselves in the chat, your names, your pronouns, the organization you represent. My name is Atia Thurman. Like I said, I'm a teaching professor at the Brown School at Washington University. Some of you may have known me in my former life as Associate Director of the Clark Fox Policy Institute, or when I was in public engagement for transportation and community development projects. We're just excited that you've joined this conversation. I am also joined by my partner, Jen Rose Fitzgerald. Say hi, Jen. Rose, all right.
Hello.
Jen Rose is from the Social Policy Institute. She's going to be helping us to facilitate, to monitor the chat. If you have any specific questions, Jen Rose is a great person to direct your question to in the chat if you want to send a private message. While you are free to move about between breakout sessions, what we really want to do is encourage you to stay, because we think if you stay with us, you'll have one of the most dynamic and enriching and engaging conversations. In a few moments, you're going to hear a short presentation from Ron Dougherty. He's president and CEO of Daugherty Business Solutions, and they're the creator of Access Point. We're going to hear how Access Point is driving life-changing opportunities for young people and underrepresented groups by providing access to education, mentorship, financial support, and long-term careers in technology. Then we'll dive into a dialogue with each other. Our hope is that you walk away today having identified someone in this room to collaborate with, to follow up with, to connect with, and a specific way that you can put into practice some of the ideas that we're going to discuss. We want to leave here with solutions. Is that right, Dana? I love how Dana talks about she is very driven to solutions. I'm inviting Dana into the space. All right. We're going to be using Jamboard today. So just a quick show of hands, thumbs up, use an emoji, raise your physical hand if you're familiar with Jamboard. Okay, great. Jamboard is essentially a digital whiteboard. It's very user-friendly, and it's a great space for us to just respectfully share thoughts and ideas. We're going to ask you some questions throughout this time, and you're going to be using Jamboard to answer some of those questions. We also encourage you to raise your hand using the reaction keys. We encourage you to take yourself off mute if you have something to contribute to the conversation. So right now, we're going to take a quick look over at Jamboard. We're going to drop, thank you, Jen Rose. We're going to drop a link. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. There we go. Oh, actually, Jen Rose already did it. Thank you so much. So hopefully we just want to give you a minute to orient yourselves. Not all of us are working with two screens. If you have a small screen, hopefully you've divided it up between Zoom and between Jamboard. This is the Jamboard that we will be working in today. We've got a couple slides. We're going to start off with the first one, which is just a set of agreements that we hope everyone can agree to so that we can have a meaningful dialogue with one another. To be present, make space, take space, speak from personal experience, that's using I statements. What is said here stays here, what is learned here leaves here. Listen to understand, assume good intentions, and again, speak in the I and not in the we. This is a very intimate conversation, so we want our individual perspectives here, although many of us are representing organizations in large-scale initiatives. Okay, if you have any questions about Jamboard, you can drop those questions in the chat, or you can message Jen Rose directly, and we're going to help you navigate Jamboard if you're having any difficulties with it. But hopefully you've all made your way to Jamboard at this point. You've taken a look at those agreements, and you've had success with operating Jamboard. And I say that because the next thing we want you to do is to take a quick moment to use slide 2. So when in your screen, as you're looking at Jamboard, I'm going to look over at mine. So you're going to see me looking over here. I'm going to go up to that middle area, and you can see this slide, an arrow that points to the right or to the left. Please advance to the second slide. Right now, what you're looking at is, the Inclusive Growth Series. This is, I think, the sixth and final session of this series. And so there's been a lot of conversation leading up to this point. So on this slide, what you're seeing is some of the recommended policies and practices that were shared in previous sessions. And as you read through, we'd like you to use Jamboard to place a star next to the action item that you think is a top priority or that is resonating with the work that you're doing. So I see that someone's you go over to the lower right corner, you grab that star and you drag it to somewhere where you think is a high priority for those of us in this space, or is this really resonating with what your organization is doing or what it would like to do, what it's aspiring to do, what you hope to see happen? We'd like to see you continue to do that. Also, I'd love to see you add anything, right? If anything's missing, then on the left-hand side of the screen, you can choose a sticky note. We have a set of tools and you can choose a sticky note and you can add an entire new sticky note and put a comment there, right? So wondering if anyone is going to try to add something to the conversation using those sticky notes. Wow, we're seeing a lot of synergy around support apprenticeship, sponsorships, and mentorship. So I think that's great because you're going to hear about that in a few minutes when we talk to Ron from Access Point. I'm seeing a lot of stars also collecting around, the start exposure to opportunities early and equitably. Absolutely. We also heard things like, intentionally expand the footprint of employer and programmatic outreach to connect with individuals and families in their communities. This will help facilitate that early access. Some of the other suggestions were to reevaluate hiring practices within a company to accommodate non-traditional pathways to employment. And then we also heard people talk about cross-sector partnerships and commitments for meaningful apprenticeships, sponsorship, and mentorship. And so you saw that right there where we have so many of those stars. So I'd love to see you doing this. This means that we're ready to transition to the next part of our session. There's a lot of energy here. And don't worry, we're going to come back to Jamboard, I promise you. But this gives us a lot to talk about when we dive into our discussion. But before we do that, I have the honor of introducing Ron Dougherty. He's the president and CEO of Daugherty Business Solutions, which founded in 1985. And under his leadership, it has become an innovator in developing technology business solutions and a career destination for tech experts. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Ron to the virtual stage. I'm passing it off to you, Ron.
I appreciate that, Atia. The honor is mine. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with you and the group. So from what I saw, the stars moving around, you are in the right session. Because what we're here to talk about is an initiative called Access Point. And the name Access Point comes from the idea, the concept that talent is equally distributed, but access to opportunity is not. So we want to change that equation. Access Point, in a nutshell, creates a path for underrepresented groups to move from high school to a well-paying, life-changing career in information technology in less than a year. And in order to do that, there's specialized training, there's a lot of support, we call it hypercare, and there's a lot of collaboration between corporations, high school districts, and higher education organizations. And so, Atia, this might be a good time to show just a little overview video, then I'll fill in a bit more detail, and then we can have a discussion.
I'm going to look for a little bit of a thumbs up here. Can everyone see a screen that says Access Point? Right. And when I press play, let me know if you can hear it.
The Access Point program connects motivated high school students to customized training, real experience, and a life-changing career in technology. At the end of the program, students will immediately start a paid apprenticeship that will lead to a guaranteed, high-paying full-time career. Access Point is unique because it allows students to start earning income immediately after completing their training. Here's how it works. Students apply during the fall semester of their senior year of high school, and if accepted, begin dual enrollment in one of the participating colleges during the spring semester. Each student works with instructors, mentors, and advisors who not only teach the appropriate technical skills, but also model life skills, business skills, and power skills, everything they need to thrive in their career. Additionally, all previous program training earns college credit toward a bachelor's degree. Once students complete their Access Point coursework, they immediately put their skills to work through a paid apprenticeship with a well-known, well-respected company. After successfully completing the apprenticeship and meeting all Access Point program requirements, students are guaranteed a full-time, high-paying job with benefits like healthcare, 401k, and tuition reimbursement, so students can continue their college education while earning a full-time salary. The Access Point program provides access to education, mentorship, and the financial freedom that comes with a career in technology. For more information or to apply, go to accesspointprogram.com to find your school's Access Point coordinator.
Very good, very good. Now, one of the interesting things you just heard is that the jobs are guaranteed. So how's that possible? Because we start with the jobs. We start with the corporations. I formed a consortium of chief information officers and CEOs from major corporations. Those include here in St. Louis, MasterCard, Bayer, Edward Jones, Cigna, Ameren, a couple of others. And so we assess that, and this is sort of interesting. There are thousands of information technology jobs that will be available, that will need to be filled over the next 1, 2, 3 years. And in fact, there's a tremendous imbalance in the supply demand curve right now. There are thousands more jobs than there are people to fill them. And of those jobs that need to be filled, a significant percentage can be filled by entry-level individuals. So what does that mean? What that means is that it's possible to train the candidates, the people, to fill those jobs, thousands of jobs. And so if we're going to have to train to create the capability to fill those jobs, then why not intentionally focus on underrepresented groups and then accomplish two major objectives at the same time? Create the capability to fill the jobs that need to be filled and create more diversity in the technology workforce at the same time. That's the idea. That's the idea. So that's what we're doing. We've already run a pilot. We have Cigna was our primary corporate sponsor. Cigna, Evernorth, Express Scripts. You might know the company by any of those three names, but they stepped in to help us as the corporate sponsor. We worked with a number of school districts. We've worked with St. Louis Community College and UMSL so far, and we started with the jobs. And the jobs the initial jobs are primarily software engineering and data engineering, because that's where the largest numbers are. And those jobs, those roles lend themselves to a relatively rapid sort of a training situation. And so that's where we started, but it can certainly expand. And so we started with the jobs. We designed the training to map into the jobs that existed. And then we worked with St. Louis Community College to start with the classes that they already had that were closest to what was needed. Then they worked with us to modify those classes. The reason that that's so important is so that the training will accumulate college credit. So when an Access Point student completes their training and apprenticeship, they'll have about 15 hours of college credit. They'll have their first semester completed. This is really important because we do not envision the program to be a coding boot camp. We envision it to be the beginning of a much longer career and educational journey. But otherwise, we run the risk of it being kind of a quick win, and then the students fall out of the program because they don't continue to advance their career. And that's not what we want. We want to inject more diversity in the IT workforce, and we want that diverse mix of individuals to continue to grow and advance in their careers and become leaders in the future. So those are some of the things we're doing. There's a significant hypercare component that's really very necessary. We find that these 17 and 18-year-old college students are plenty smart enough to do the work, but they're 17 and 18 years old. So I remember when I was 17 and 18 years old, I didn't I didn't have everything fully developed in my my particular situation, and I don't think that I think most people don't. So some additional support to help. Plus, they're moving into just a different situation. The major corporate IT organization is a little different environment than the one they come from, and so that's an issue on both sides, right? One of the things that that I like about the program is that in addition to creating the opportunity for the access point students, it creates leadership development opportunities for the corporate leaders who will be working with them, supporting them, and managing them. So our pilot is consisted of 15 students are currently in their apprenticeships, getting close to moving into full-time jobs. I hired one, and he's already moved into a full-time job. So we have the second cohort is being developed, and the training for these cohorts today begins in the second semester of the student's senior year in high school. And for that second semester, they're jointly enrolled in high school and in college so that they receive college credit while they complete their high school education. And we're at about 65 students so far, and we're taking this beyond St. Louis. We're talking with leaders in Minneapolis and Atlanta and Chicago and Dallas and so on. And I have offices in all those locations, and so business relationships with corporations. So that helps us bring them on board. And I've made a commitment to hire 25 of the Access Point students directly into Daugherty, because I want to increase the diversity of my team, and I also want to provide leadership opportunities for my leaders at Daugherty to grow in their ability to work effectively with a more diverse group. So it's a double win as far as that's concerned. And I could share more, but that's the kind of the essence of it. And so let me stop and see where your questions are and what you'd like to hear, what more you would like to hear. And let's have a discussion. This is maybe one more thing that I'll say is that this has just been my initiative so far. I've invested over $1 million in it. Why did I do that? Because I think it's the right thing to do. I'm in a lucky place. I started my company 37 years ago. I've never had an outside investor. I have over 2,000 employees, growing fast, getting close to 300 million in revenue. I have 75 Fortune 500 clients, and I think I can take it to $1 billion in revenue while I'm still able to run it. And I'm driven to do that because the larger, more successful my company becomes, the more of a positive difference I can make. So that's why I'm working.
Yeah,
because I'm driven to do it, and it's a privilege. It's just an honor to be able to do it. I'm a really lucky guy. Somebody's been watching out for me because I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm here, and I appreciate being here, and I'm going to do all the good that I can. And so that's why we're doing Access Point. So scaled it this far, and this is one of the things maybe we can talk about at the end of the discussion is, when we take this to thousands and thousands of students, I want to change the game across the entire United States. Then we'll need partners. We'll need help from policymakers, from the government. We'll need to do some things to scale. I can cover 1 million. I might do a little more than that, but I can't personally invest 100 million. And the payback, what we've done with the pilot is that we've proven it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that needed some proof. We've established it. So Atia, please.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ron. We really appreciate what you've done too. And we'd love to hear from a student. So we're going to queue up one more time. We're going to hear from a student. Some of you may recognize this student, and I did. I was so excited. So let's hear from her and hear what she has to say about Access Point.
This is something that just will help a lot of young students be able to get out on their own and start a career faster. My name is Fumi Adewale. I was a graduate of University City High School, and I really loved St. Louis. There are so many success stories out of St. Louis, and this program can be that as well. they really on day one set the pace for how this program is going to work. I was still nervous, I was like, okay, this is an accelerated course, so I'm sure they're just gonna, hit the ground running. But they told us, this is how we're gonna go through week one. These are the exercises that we're going to let you guys do. And what thing I really appreciated is that there's really no grading in this. It's a chance for you to build a portfolio for yourself. We're gonna have this portfolio of small code, large codes that we can take with us to show people that we did this within a span of 17 weeks because of the way that the teaching is structured. Opportunity is the biggest thing that you can give somebody. It's not just saying, oh, we have this program. No, it's going to that school, making those trips, saying, hey, we want you. Not just saying, hey, there's this program out there. Actually reaching into the community, especially into our inner cities, and saying, we want you. We want exactly you. You're who we're looking for, instead of just saying, oh, this could be you. This is something that just will help a lot of young students be able to get out on their own and start a career faster. That's the biggest thing that we're going to be getting out of this program. I've seen myself grow tremendously. I've seen myself feel more confident and understand what each line of code means and how it works, and then seeing where my errors are and how to fix that. Even if you know nothing about what coding is, if you know nothing about what Java or IT is, I say just go for it. Just see what you're capable of, because when we really put our minds to things, we're capable of so much beyond our measure, and a lot of people just don't realize that.
But thank you so much again, Ron. We really appreciate everything that Access Point is doing, hearing about the incredible work. And what we really want to have a conversation now about, how do we scale up? How do we get more partners? What are people doing that they're excited about? What are people doing? What are the barriers that they're facing? And how do we get to those solutions so that we have so many more of our students right here being part of the STEM pipeline and going out into tech careers and being the next generation of leaders in this space. So now we're going to head back over to Jamboard. If you have questions specifically about Access Point, or if you have any questions for Ron, please use the chat and we'll see about getting to those. In the meantime, though, we do want to jump into our conversation. So we're going to go back to a space where we're back to Jamboard. Let's get over, and we're going to get over to slide 4. So let me see if my Jamboard is open. Let's see. Thanks, Jen Rose. All right. So at this point, we want to hear a little bit more from everyone else who's here, because we know you're here with a mission, and we know you're here to have this conversation. So please join in right now. This is your chance. Hop on the Jamboard. Tell us who you are, your name, your organization, and tell us a little bit about any policy or practice that you are implementing to be more inclusive in hiring or in education. What programs do you have that are going on? What new ideas or initiatives are out there in this ecosystem that's supporting our students gain greater access and preparedness? Everybody remember how to add a sticky? We can go through that again. We want to start seeing you add to this space here. Don't be shy now. Where are you?
Did you call me?
Oh, not yet, Stacey, but if you have something you want to add to the conversation, now's a great time.
Oh.
That isn't working.
You talk about being put on the spot. Maybe it was Sal.
Oh, I think Sal said his Jamboard's not working.
No.
Oh,
So-
now Sal. Okay, so if there's something you'd like to add, Sal, you can do just what you did. You can go off of mute and add it. You can also use chat and we can add it for you. Let's see. Oh,
okay,
is that Sarah
perfect.
from Launch Code? Thanks, Sarah, for pioneering, putting the first sticky note down. Sometimes that's the hardest job, and you did it. So thank you. Sarah from Launch Code said, we provide students with laptops if they don't have appropriate ones, and have a partnership with Penrose Cares, is that right? To help students access emergency funding. Wow, this is sounding a lot like some of the hypercare I think Ron was talking about in Access Point. When you see an area that's where students need additional support, such as access to emergency funding, or even just the materials and equipment that they need to be successful, like the laptops. Absolutely, those are the types of practices we're talking about.
Atia, if I could, actually,
Yeah.
my question is related, or my comments are related to the question I asked Ron. I thank Ron, and I work with the ethnic English plus communities in our region and in the state, actually, and community leaders and MPO. So this is such a great program. If I can help promote it, that would be great.
All right, that sounds like the collaboration we're talking about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's exactly what you need. The getting the word out there is really our most critical path right now. And we're doing some things. Lee Metcalf is my partner in the program. He's a executive director of Access Point, running the program, and he can fill in some more of the details. We're working with 25 school districts. We're trying to get the word out there. It's interesting that in a typical school district, and this isn't a critical comment, it's just a statement, that almost no one knows much at all about a career in information technology. That the counselors don't, the principals don't, the superintendents don't, teachers don't, except for maybe one computer teacher. And that's not a criticism, it's just where we are right now. And so just getting the word out there and making it clear, just as Fumi did when you heard from her, that even if you haven't taken a lot of computer science classes, take a look at the program. Now something I don't know, you may have heard, but we brought in Nelly to be our executive sponsor spokesperson. He's just been really, really helpful and supportive. And that's helped to attract some of the students. And anyway, that we're doing other things, but what Sal, that would be wonderful for us to collaborate with you to get the word out there. We just don't want to pass over a student who could benefit from joining the program.
Absolutely.
I put my Gmail in there. My other question, Ron, to you, and I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions, but I can't use the whiteboard. The construction industry. Has anybody in your team been working with the St. Louis Council of Construction Consumers or the Construction Forum? And we're talking about the owners. We're talking about design and build.
Yeah.
So if you'll allow me, I can comment, Ron. We're actually modeled a number of things off of Bob Clark's energy in that particular area, and the inroads that they made. We worked with the superintendents of a lot of the schools. You may all know Dr. Art McCoy out of Jennings, who was instrumental in what's happened with the construction industry, as well as some things that have happened with the healthcare industry. We're going to school on a lot of those pieces. Absolutely trying not to reinvent wheels.
Yeah. And you know what? Thanks so much, Sal and Lee, for joining in. And I want to go back to the Jamboard for a minute, because I remember I had a great conversation with Lee and his team at Access Point about what are some of the things that you need to be more successful, to help more students, to expand this program. One of the things that they're doing is hypercare. And it's just amazing, because I'm looking at Chelsea. And Chelsea, if you don't mind, you can come off, you can come on camera if you want. Your comment said, we have social workers on staff. Learners opt into accessing. Tell us a little bit more about that, because hypercare is something that we've talked about in terms of like it being a function of case management, right? Case management, helping students have wraparound and holistic care and services so that they can be successful. Is Chelsea in the room?
I am, yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah, did you want to say a little bit more about that?
Sure. We try to make our social workers accessible to our students. We call them learners, and we train folks 18 and older. So in a nod to the fact that they're lifelong learners. And one thing we started to realize is we were kind of assuming that all of our learners needed to talk to them. And that wasn't necessarily the case. Like some did and some did not. People had different needs. And so, we're always trying to reevaluate how can we be as respectful as possible. And we thought, hey, we're teeing up people and getting them ready for the workplace. Let's make this kind of like an employee assistance program where you can opt in So we will have the social workers in the beginning of a class come in, introduce themselves. So there's a friendly face, okay, that's, that is your person. We call them the learner support team. So there'll be both a social worker and a financial coach. They'll come in on professional development days and maybe give a session that kind of shows a little bit about all the different stuff that they offer. You could go to them, whether it's housing needs or childcare, whatever the issue is. So folks now both know what they can talk to them about and who they are. And then they have open office hours. So people like an employee assistance program, you can opt in, but we're trying to not force it down people's throat and say, yeah, you have to go. I think before it was a little bit more like, you'd have to have one session with them or something. And we realized it was more respectful to let people opt in.
Yeah, and demonstrate their agency. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Jesse from Launch Code, you've talked about so some differences in your hiring practices, having hiring managers. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Is Jesse on here?
Hi, yeah, Jesse from Launch Code. I serve as the VP of Impact there. I think a lot of times in this conversation, what could get left out is that it honestly takes the entire ecosystem to lean into the work. And so I just wanted to highlight one way we've seen an employer partner lean into that ecosystem. And we talk about how employers can change what's happening internally to better these pathways. And one thing we've seen them do is job posts that they have up, they edit their education qualifications to recognize through words, through their practices, that it's not just about four-year degree pathways to access our opportunities here. And so they'll specify Launch Code or boot camp certificate holders or things.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We were just saying one of the things that we talked about previously in the Inclusive Growth series, specifically around this issue, is reevaluating hiring processes and practices. And that's just a great example of that. Also, we've got Kate Polakonis in the room from STEM STL. Kate, do you want to say anything about what you posted on here?
Thanks, Atia. Yeah, I think it's fantastic to see what Daugherty is doing with Access Point. But I think the real challenge we face in the region is fragmentation and making things accessible across the board and scalable. And honestly, we need an access point in healthcare, in advanced manufacturing, in bioscience and ag tech. We need to be able to do this across the region. And that's kind of why STEM STL exists, to sort of take the most promising programs that are out there and figure out ways that we can help scale by removing barriers. So we're planning a work-based learning summit in May. So part of that work, we're doing a landscape analysis of all of the places from O'Fallon, Illinois to O'Fallon, Missouri, where students are interacting with employers to see, a catalog of is it job shadowing? Is it an internship? Is it, are they walking out with an industry recognized credential? Is it a paid opportunity? Just really getting an understanding throughout the region of how students are interacting with employers and work-based learning. And then we'll release that report in May, and we'll kick off our community of practice for work-based learning, because we know that we need to have more work-based learning opportunities throughout the region. But before we scale, we need to make sure that we have supports in place so that they're quality experiences for the hosting employers and for the students who are engaging in this. Because if you just scale up without having sort of quality assurance in place, you're going to end up with frustrated employers and you're going to end up failing students. So really excited about that, especially given some of the conversations we've had with training programs where you might have a mandate from a CIO or a CTO or a CEO that says we need to diversify, we need to do this. But then you still don't see the kind of conversion to full employment that you would hope, because you have hiring managers who are sort of dealing with internal biases, saying that some kind of candidates who have taken an alternative path in their credentialing aren't a good fit for the organization. So we really want to take an opportunity to convene people and talk about what it looks like to be welcoming, to give everyone a sense of belonging in all the career pathways in STEM throughout the region.
Absolutely. So many good points. I know Ron's agreeing with you. I see his head going, and I know there's a lot of people here thinking about several things that you said. And so I want to invite anyone, I took it off screen share for just a minute so that we could all see each other. And I want to invite anyone into this conversation. We'd love to hear more about solutions, success, barriers, how we can connect to each other. I love that you're talking about mapping the landscape. and getting a sense of what opportunities are out there. And I think I heard a little bit about even like hypercare, right? So what Access Point is calling hypercare, you're saying like, we can't just put people in these spaces without thinking about what would make it a meaningful experience. How can we help them be more successful? How can we make sure that these are environments where they'll thrive so that it's mutually beneficial? Anybody else want to add to the conversation, add your voice? We can also, I can go back to showing you Jamboard because there's some great comments there.
Hi, Atia, it's Dana, and I'm glad you opened this up because I also couldn't get my Jamboard to work. And Kate, I think everything that you said, I'm like totally there. I'm totally drinking your Kool-Aid. There's a mile-long list of things, and Lee could rattle them off, and we'd be here the rest of the time as Lee shared with us what he already knows to be some of these things. But one thing I just wanted to put on the table that we haven't talked about yet, in addition to the caseworking kind of opportunity that we have to handhold these kids and give a better landing spot in. But one thing, and Lee, you probably know what I'm going to say, transportation is also an issue. And we can't let that stop us from being able to change the world here and being able to help the corporations and help the kids and help the community and help St. Louis. But transportation has been and probably will continue to be an issue that we face in even getting started in this and being able to get people to an employer. So I just wanted to throw that opportunity or challenge, if you want, on the table, if there's a great solution out there for us.
I'm happy to comment if you'd like, Atia.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear, I'd love to hear anyone else who, raise your hand, put up a thumb signal, use one of your reactions if this is also something that you've noticed as part of the barriers to access or to participation or something that you've run into. Yeah, I'm seeing some thumbs go up, that transportation. And anybody have any ideas around solutions around what's working or even just anything you've experimented with? But go ahead, Lee, jump in and that conversation.
Just two items. The reality is that by design, we're going after younger folks. And you God love Launch Code and Empower and others who have been in this, toiling in this field for many years. The reality, though, is that we have to get more inspired to come into IT world, and you got to get to high school. The superintendents have said start younger. So we're literally, part of Access Point is engaging with sophomores and juniors to encourage them to see the opportunity to take the classes to become competitive to get into Access Point. Because they're young, they don't have back to transportation as easily as others might who are a little further along in life and with a little more income. So getting them to Flow Valley and Forest Park, coordinating with, First Student and the bus systems, engaging with parents and friends, looking at Metro, trying to come up with federal funding. There are Perkins funds that are out there. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm trying to line up. Emerson has put money on the table to do some things for some of the North County schools, but sometimes when you get right down to it, the number of young people that fit the requirement to use that Emerson fund is like 4. And so I got to figure out, how do we put this together? That transportation issue is a common across the whole group of our pilot. I would have lost 2/3 of the kids if we didn't figure out how to sort out some of the transportation issues. But what I did in the small group, I can't scale. I need your help. We need your help to think through that particular issue, as well as the case management piece, even tutors, getting smarter about how to bring tutors to the game to augment the St. Louis Community College and the school infrastructure. And then some of them are stepping away from jobs. Some of these young folks are not only going to school, they're working full-time at Subway. They're putting food on the table. This is the target group we're after. These are where the big numbers are. It's not the couple of dozen kids who have got a full ride to college. God love them. Keep going. But it's these hundreds of young folks that need guidance and support to get over some hurdles. The case managers need to build trust. Trust is a major component of these young people succeeding. And when they have a problem, like their mom has to move to another place, she doesn't want to talk about it. We lost this young lady for a couple of classes. it took us a while. The case manager got to know him well enough to be able to actually get the insight as to what was wrong.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
young lady, we pulled $600 out of her pocket, got 2 men in the truck, and we helped her family move. Now, that's not just case management, that's hypercare. That's
So
an
wait.
example of what this is.
Yeah, so Lee, thank you for, I think you got several people who really want to jump in and say some things. So I saw Stacey, Jesse, and Kate. Who would like to go first? Is Stacey, you want to go?
I will.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And
No
then
problem.
pass it on to Jesse and Kate, okay?
Okay, no problem. So Lee, I have posted on the Jamboard, and I know everybody can't see that thing, but this is where public and private partnerships need to come into play. And what I mean by that is the companies that these individuals are going to go work for. This is where public-private partnership and your earn and learn model, because you know, I was in workforce for 15 years, and you send somebody to training and you pray that they get through and they get a job. Those days are over. Can't do that anymore. We got to know that we're going to have some outcomes and that people are going to be successful. And it's kind of around that whole apprenticeship model, but this is a little different. Because if they are getting a job at Taco Bell and McDonald's and whatever, they're working because they need those resources. So there's got to be some way that you put that resource with the training program so that it helps them figure out how they can go back to work. I will tell you that we built a partnership when I was at Slate with Uber and Lyft to get people back and forth. Of course, you have your traditional transportation of bus tickets and that kind of thing, but I've worked for other agencies where they provided actual vehicles for the individuals, but they would have to pay for their insurance and they would have to do some other things. But that's because you're building the public-private partnerships with used car dealers. And, with this whole COVID thing and the lack of vehicles and shortages and all that, I don't know how well this is going to work today, but back then it worked very well. People donate cars, and now you probably couldn't get nobody to give you anything with a car because everybody's trying to hold on to the piece of car that they got. But these are just programs that I know have been successful and have worked to address that transportation issue.
Great.
Also,
Let's talk more, Stacey. I want to pick your brain.
Okay, no problem. Okay, passing it on to who did you say?
We love the great ideas, and we're interested.
Jesse was
We're interested.
was next. Right, Jesse, you have your hand up?
Still 2 years, still working on it. I think something that popped up for me as Lee was sharing, and thank you, Lee, was also, I think a lot of people would be surprised, maybe not surprised, let me not say other people, speak from the eye. What we see in our work at Launch Code is that the issues, like similar to what Lee mentioned, they persist across generations, right? Like we've very much so had participants who struggle with issues like transportation too. And I think that something that's important to keep in mind is that the youth who you see struggling with these issues likely come from households who struggle with these same issues. And so for me, Kate is preaching to the choir when she talks about like the existing fragmentation in St. Louis and like how the programs doing similar work can like come together and partner in ways. Because things that always like cross my mind for me is like what happens with the 18, 21-year-old who falls out of the like age range for access point or like Empower. And when they move through the pipeline, it's like if organizations were connected, we make sure we can keep people in and catch them at the points where people can serve them still throughout the entire system, but also like organizations and bodies like STEM STL who can bring together all these different orgs that are doing the work to be like, what's here, what do we have, and where are there gaps where we can connect?
Good stuff.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Jesse, for that comment. And I know Kate had her hand raised as well, and I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Oh, well, thank you, Jesse. Like Mutual Admiration Society, I absolutely love watching everything you're doing. I think we know Like there's good research that says that like to actually get students into careers in STEM, you have to give them this like deepening level of experience. So to Jesse's point, like, yes, we need to have this systemic ecosystem approach that says, here's what you're going to be doing, this exposure to cool concepts all the way to immersion into, you know, coding or geospatial or medicine or whatever. So like, yes, the more we can align as an ecosystem and provide those clear pathways to students, I think the better we're going to like see those matriculation rates. In terms of the transportation, I think this isn't, I mean, like I love collective work. So I'm just gonna like say I love collective work all the time. Like I've seen collectives go and advocate at bi-state for more half-price passes. And then you can sort of group purchase half-price passes and provide those to people. Although if you have like a really dysfunctional public transportation system like we have in St. Louis, it's not as efficacious as a city where you have functioning transportation. So I think there's also a role to say like, let's come together and advocate for like a north-south Metrolink line. Let's bring the power of the major employers in the region who are experiencing this hiring crunch. Like, what are the systemic barriers and what can you use as your power as like a major taxpayer and major employer in the region to demand that those systemic barriers be dismantled so that you have access to a high quality, diverse workforce to help support your growing business. So I think the more that we can come together as an ecosystem of people interested in making a diverse workforce, the more we can kind of like put pressure to eliminate some of those systemic barriers we continue to see.
Yeah, and Kate, you're definitely talking about like long-term projects. I mean, I worked in transportation and Metrolink expansion, very long-term, high investment projects. It takes a lot. It takes that collaboration. Is there a specific way you want to see people partner or collaborate? Do you have a specific suggestion?
Yeah, I think the more we like come together, things like STEM STL, which open invitation, come join, you know, like formally this group of almost 500 people who are in STEM learning and STEM workforce, come be a part of this conversation, come add your like advocacy voice to say like, this is what we need. We need to change how, you know, like education is delivered. We need to like make sure all kids have access to high quality programs, that it's in their neighborhood, that they see it happening right there. I think the more we work together as a collective on addressing the things that impact students across the board, but most importantly, the students who've been traditionally left out of STEM careers, the faster we're going to address these systemic burdens.
All right.
Can I just make another comment, Atia?
Yes, go for it. And then Sal's got something he wants to add.
We've got a lot of things in the system, but I got 65 kids who I can give you exactly what they need, and I need help figuring out how to do it. I got a 25 out of the first. So what Ron's done is he said, go do it, Lee. Just go do it. Go find out what the problem is. So I can give you name and issue and where this kid is on the corner and how do I get him from the corner to Flow Valley. And I think part of what happens, because I need it now. And yes, we need a corridor system to get set up, but these jobs are happening next year and the year after and the year after, thousands of them. And so part of what I'd love to see out of this consortium is to work with us around, what am I overlooking? How do we actually, and I can give you these examples. I got 5 kids from Jennings. Here's when they got to be there. Here's when they got to be home. Their mom is dropping them off, their dad is picking them up, or they don't have a guardian. So therein lies part of the dynamic that Access Point can put some real examples on the table. And I'd love to have you look at them and ask and help us figure out, how do I solve this now for Marcus and Denisha and Destiny right now?
Yeah, and Aja, I don't want to, Jason's got something to say in Sal, but also Aja put 2, and am I saying it right? Is she put 2?
It's Asia. It's
Asia. I'm sorry. You put 2 comments in I didn't want to overlook, you had 2 comments. You offered something around transportation, looking at Uber or transport partnerships, but then you also added another comment. I just wanted to see if you wanted to say anything about the personal mentorship or connecting with organizations that are offering another level of mentorship and care.
Sure, if I can go after the person who is just about to go.
Yeah, so I think we've got Sal and Jason, and if you we've got about 3 minutes together, so just letting you know. Sal, do you want to go ahead? Great.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just want to follow up with what Kate, and Kate, I'm sorry, I'm gonna kill your last name.
Policonis? Oh, no, you got it on the first try. Amazing, Sal.
All right, great. But she said some key things there, and I want to build on that. And I think one of the places to start is that we're clear where our future workforce is coming from. And if you look at the demographic trends from the census, in Missouri, it's projected, and this is an old projector, 2015. So it's projected that in Missouri by the year 2040, 2050, 32% of our students are going to be Latino. The African-American or the Black population stays steady. You can see a kind of a decline, but kind of steady around 13 to 15%. But for our white communities, it's going to go from 2000, where it was 61% to 39%. So it's very critical that we address these demographics because they are the driver for changes in our workforce. And so I apologize if I keep bringing up ethnic communities, but that's going to be where the future workforce is. Yeah. And so my questions revolve around what we do to engage the communities that are our future workforce in terms of reaching out to them into their communities, into the school. I'm glad to see Rittner is on the list. But we also have Pablo Flynn over at University City.
Yes, no problem.
In organizations. So my question, it's an open-ended question. How do we create the community-based outreach programs to address the questions, parents on trust? I'm going to speak for my community, the Latino community. There's some trust questions, safety questions for very good reasons, but I'll give you an example.
I don't want you to be interrupted when they shut down our room. They're going to shut down our room. It's so disorienting when that happens.
I think I said enough.
No. We know this conversation needs to continue. Jason, I apologize that we've got 40 seconds. So go ahead and Jason, but just know that you might get cut off. And I know how jarring that is.
I'll be very quick. I guess I just leave it with an open question, and that is like, how are folks communicating, their innovations, their practices to policymakers? And how are you sharing the innovative things that you're doing with other folks and other organizations who could perhaps learn from some of the great programs and projects that folks are engaged in? So I'll stop there, but thank you, Atia.
Yeah, I hate for anyone to get cut off when they bring us back into the main room. Thank you so much. I can't say enough about thank you. Please continue to submit your reflections and look for opportunities to connect with each other. We're going to send back to you some of the information.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and presentation that took place in our breakout rooms. Thank you for all the presenters and everyone in the audience for your participation and engagement. I know it's hard to sit for 3 hours for a Zoom event, but your contribution is so important to us. As we said from the beginning, the purpose of today is to provide space for collaboration and discussion, as well as to give you tools to identify and commit to making St. Louis a more inclusive place. In the breakout session, we ask you to write down a commitment. If you use the link that we provided to submit your commitment, you will receive a copy of it in your email as a way to hold yourself accountable and for us to remind you. We also ask you to identify someone in the room you could collaborate with or learn from. We will share out a contact list to make this easier for you. You're in this event today because you are serious about inclusive growth in St. Louis and you want to be part of building a more equitable economy that works for everyone. That's why we are here. For me, this event series was just the beginning of our work. It just helped us to learn what needs to be done. And now we are committed to continue the very important work that is ahead of us. We have learned so much from our conversation with all of you over the past year and a half. We have heard about the challenges preventing inclusive growth in St. Louis, and we have heard from people and organizations working in the community to address these challenges with bold solutions. We will continue to champion inclusive and equity in everything we do. Here is what we are committing today. We as Social Policy Institute. First, our commitment is to expand this conversation today by partnering with organizations in the community to evaluate their model and scale up promising solutions for larger impact in St. Louis. Second, we are committed to being very intentional about increasing representation on our team in our research, ensuring that we are partnering with people in the community who are impacted by our funding and throughout the process. Third, we will continue to align ourselves with the larger Washington University in St. Louis for St. Louis initiative. We are excited about the university commitment to the new St. Louis Anchor Action Network with other stakeholders who are committed to reducing inequality. Thank you again for our wonderful committee and for all the hard work. We are so thankful for all of you, and to MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth for making this conversation a reality. And thank you everyone who listening here today. Thank you for your participation, support, and your passion for more equitable St. Louis. Thanks again and have a wonderful afternoon.